Actually, this follows on very nicely from Nick's presentation. So here we're going to talk about strategic visibility, platforms, opportunities, and systems, how to get seen, most importantly, and not ignored. So what we're trying to say is how to make the best use of your time, because we all have limited time, and we all have limited time in which to promote ourselves. And I suppose what we're looking at is how you can maximize it to your advantage, and not just spend loads of time doing lots of work which nobody will look at, because you would be better using your time to do something else. Just to add, obviously, Alex, if you've got things to add on this presentation, just jump in. So next slide, please, Yelena. Okay, so here we have the big truth. Being visible is not enough. And this follows on from what Nick was saying, that posting work every day doesn't guarantee success. So where are you posting your work? How are you posting your work? So as Nick was saying, Instagram, having lots of likes on Instagram isn't a guarantee of industry interest. And what's also important is having an online portfolio that's on the correct platform for you. So again, this is as Nick was saying, this is talking about how to make sure that you position yourself properly, because there is just so much out there that it's really important that people actually see what you're doing, and that you're on the right platform. So next slide, please,
Well,
Yelena.
can I add to that?
Oh, sorry.
Just to go back. Yeah, I mean this is the thing. You've got to be very strategic in what you post, and it's not a matter of posting every day. It's posting, when you feel right. It's all about timing. There's a lot of people post a lot of rubbish, and far better to post one amazing bit of work every week than 5 bits of work that really, quite frankly, late you think, well, why did I post that? So yeah, but really think it through. Yeah, it's not, and there's a lot of noise out there, so just really think it through. Think before you do anything, okay? Because a lot of people I don't think a lot of people do think about what they're doing, really. I think they just, it's like putting it out there and think, no, it's not intelligent.
No, you're right, Alex. One thing also that I've noticed is when we see, for example, a designer has a website and it links to their Instagram, or it links to their Instagram from the university portfolios. It can be their personal Instagram. And this is a big debate. Some people manage to combine a personal and a work Instagram because of who they are, or maybe it's more to do with fine art than it is with design. But actually, we probably suggest in most cases that people have a personal Instagram and then a work Instagram, because sometimes you will be looking at a portfolio website and you say, oh, and it has a link to an Instagram. And then you just see lots of holiday photographs of beaches and people enjoying themselves. And you think, oh, have I got this right? Is this right? So I think it's very important that you position yourself professionally when you're using sites such as Instagram, and maybe have one for you, your personal, and one for your actual design work. Okay, next slide. So this is an arts thread. This is the arts thread website. So here graduates and students can post their projects. And again, I mean, one of the things is also thinking about, there's lots of things to consider that when you're posting that are different from, say, for example, just having your portfolio as a PDF or having it on your website. For example, what is going to be the title of this project? What is going to be the cover image of this project? So when you are at, whether it is your own website, for example, think about what is the most enticing picture that you're going to show people. And the other thing is, when you're doing your when you're uploading a project, what is the order of the project? What is the logical order of the project, so that people can actually be going on a journey through your project? So from the initial concept, your ideas, to the sketches, and then finally ending up with the finished article. Because so many students and designers think that everyone is just interested in looking at pictures of the final product, and actually don't include all of the working drawings or the sketches. But for many people who are hiring, that is actually the most interesting part, rather than the finished article.
It's very much the thought process.
Mm.
And that sometimes the finished work of art is not as exciting as the thought process itself. That strategic thinking, that going about working to a particular brief, or something that you've obviously created yourself. I mean, Katie's absolutely right. Yeah, you know that it really frustrates me. I know it frustrates Katie when we do this global creative graduate show. We do these competitions with all these big brands around the planet, and you see the work. Wow, that's lovely, but you know, how did they get there? I mean, we're not psychic, so it's very, very important to provide the journey, you know, to give that backup, and also, I mentioned it earlier, to prove that it's your work, right? So, you know, that finished item, that could be somebody else. So it's like, well, how did you get there? What was the starting point? What was the motivation? And how did you get from A to Z? And if you don't do that, you're missing a trick, because that that's often the reason why the person gets hired, or is you know, or that person buys that work of art. Yeah, it's consistent. It is a formula, and if you stick to that formula, you're far more likely to succeed than just that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there's a work of art, you know, but you know, we had a winner. The great example, the winner of the Global Creative Graduate Showcase last year in fine art, it wasn't just the works of art that this Scottish artist created. It was how did she get there, you know, and she, you know, she did some of the stuff on TikTok and Instagram. It was a brilliant story, and it's the reason why she won. So that's an example of what you should do. But Katie, you're right. The cover image, the cover image is absolutely imperative. It's the best bit of work you've done, because you've got to lead them to you. You know, there's a lot of times that people, you know, post their work on ArtSthread, and it's a cover image of their face. Well, I'm sorry, that's not going to lead me to your work. So, you know, it's getting better, Katie, but we're still getting people uploading an image of their face as the cover image. Is that, well, no, I'm not hiring you as a model, or you know, you're working behind a bar in my local pub. So just think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think one of the things is actually getting to think about the person who's looking at your work rather than thinking of you. It's like, if someone didn't know me, would they get what I did? Would they understand me? And so, as Nick was saying in his presentation, if you're not there with them in an interview, how do you get across your message of who you are? And I think this is actually really important, about thinking about the other person who's on the other side. They don't know you. They don't know anything about you. They suddenly come across your portfolio. How can you find a way for them to really understand you, and what makes you tick, what makes you excited? And I think that is a skill, and it is really important skill to learn. And again, as Lick said, it's like, how do you do that, but in a succinct way? Also, and we'll be discussing this in the next presentation with Jed, is we do see far too many people who've written project resume of their project with AI, and it can be like really, really dull, and it's really very noticeable and very obvious. So I think, what is it really interesting to hirers and to people who might be interested in your work is that originality, and that originality of thought and the way that you write that is so important.
Moving into the slides.
Oh, sorry. Next slide, please. So what does visibility actually mean? Okay, so it's the right people seeing your work. So we're talking about how do you get your work in front of creative directors, a buyer, or a recruiter, rather than just your mates in the university. And so it means, as we've just been talking about, understanding what you do. So I'm a branding designer, or so, versus this is random work. So that is also is so important that you actually highlight and really make clear what it is that you do and what type of job you're looking for, and that they remember you. So is it whether your style or how you do it? So again, this is also going back to this idea of, I say, physical portfolio, but how do you make your work unique and interesting to you? Okay, next slide, Yelena, please. So moving on from that, we have, who are you creatively? So you don't need to be everything. And I think this is a really important point, because this will help you in terms of getting your jobs, or pinpointing what you want to do as freelance, for example. So if it was fashion, then the suggestion is you could then refine it to saying, I design sustainable streetwear. So instead of saying, oh, I'm just a fashion designer, or I'm a women's wear designer, it's bringing it down so that you can it's easier for you as well, because then it means that you can then target those companies who you really want to work for, rather than trying to just approach anybody that you just think, oh, okay, I'll send 50 random CVs to different companies. It's like really thinking about who would be right for you, and then proving to them why you would be the ideal candidate. So, for example, in graphics, is focusing on bold typography and branding. So again, it's thinking about who would be the ideal partners for you to work with. And when architecture, it would be, I'm interested in small urban spaces. So, for example, that as an example. So clarity helps people understand and hire you. And I think also it really helps you as the designer to clarify what you want to be doing, and also to maximize on your time, so that you're not wasting time working on projects that actually are not right for you, but you'll be able to focus on what is your skill set, what is really important to you, and then target those companies that will be right for you.
Just to add, it's very, very important. I'm going back in the day here. When I graduated, and I know there's people on this call that haven't gone to university and studied a particular subject. And as Nick said, it's irrelevant. But I'm just saying that when I graduated, I had this fixation of working for a particular brand, and I thought I was right for that brand. And what I hadn't done, I'd done no detective work. I hadn't done any market research. I hadn't realized that my portfolio was not right for that company. So quite rightly, when I kept on sending work to try and get an interview, and I was sending work, and I thought, I'm really proud of this, and I was reasonably talented. It wasn't relevant. It wasn't relevant to that brand that I thought I wanted to work for. So, funny enough, I ended up working for them later, but only when I realized exactly who they were. Now, I actually worked on their shop floor in London, which is how I realized why my portfolio was completely it wasn't relevant to them. So you've got to think strategically about what you send. And if that's a company that you're interested in, you've got to be offering something that they haven't got, but is relevant to what they're about. So if they specialize in urban space, for example, then obviously that's what you're going to be giving them, but not giving them exactly what they already do today, because why the hell would they employ you or bring you in as a freelancer if you're offering something that they've already got? So you've just got to think about, do your detective work and be strategic in how you go about. It's not a scattergun approach. There's so many people that send out work, to 50 companies, and actually there was only 5 of those companies that were relevant. So you've got to think like that. Sorry, so we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
We should do, because
move next slide, please, Yelena. Okay, what problem do you solve? Clients don't just want creativity, they want solutions. So as actually just following up from what Alex was saying about the fact of, you don't want to just turn up with work that they already do. What you want to do is to look at a company and think, okay, I can see what they do. Here, I've got some ideas about how I might be able to grow their business. And I think this knowledge of a business is really important. I mean, there's nothing worse than turning up at an interview and actually not knowing a lot about the business. I mean, because that would mean that you would just definitely not get the job. The fact that someone hasn't bothered to find out about this company before they come to the interview means that they're not really that interested in getting the job in terms of the hirer. So you want to, so from a point of view of solutions, so this is, we look, it could be a brand that looks for professional and graphic design. It could be a product people will buy, product design, or a space that works and looks good. So in architecture, so it's thinking about, again, going back to this empathy, it's thinking about them rather than you. Yes, I want the job, but how am I going to get them so interested in me that they're going to hire me? Why are they going to hire me? So you really sort of think, okay, how can I solve the problem that they've got? What headaches do they have that I can actually solve for them? Okay, next slide, please. Who needs to see your work? So again, there's different audiences here. There's employers. So that could be studios, agencies, brands, clients. So that's if you're working as a freelancer. So that could be small businesses, startups. And there's industry people, curators, buyers, collaborators. So this, again, this could be, for example, if you were looking at maybe a freelance career, but you're also looking at perhaps doing art or design residencies, for example. So, and in the example we've got here is that a fashion designer may need buyers, stylists, press. So again, it's like thinking about these different audiences. How do you reach them on social media? How do you reach them through your website, for example? So and how your message to each of these audiences will probably need to be different, whether you're addressing actually directly to customers or whether you're wanting to speak to buyers or press. So that, again, that changes with the audience. Next slide, please, Yelena. So as we've been talking on, again, here are the social medias that we would suggest. So we've got Instagram, which we talked about as being a very visual medium. And then we've got LinkedIn, which is jobs and professional connections. Then we've got ArtThread, which we touched on earlier about portfolios and getting exposure as an emerging designer. And then we've also got local events, exhibitions and networking, which is very, very important, actually. As Nick touched on, one thing that we've noticed is that, for example, someone who is necessarily, but often building more of a freelance career, often those people that are successful are the ones who are very keen on collaboration. So you'll find that already by the time they've graduated, they've already worked with fellow students on at least sort of 2 or 3 initiatives. They've been working on maybe about 5 or 6 of them would get together and they would do their own little mini exhibition, and just actually getting involved in events and exhibitions to raise your profile. And I think that is the most important thing, because I think sometimes when people graduate, it's like, okay, graduation's finished, now what? Okay, yes, there is the applying for jobs, but I think this idea of actually carrying on with exhibitions, networking, well, I mean, they could also be on online events, but this is also very important, this idea of this continuation. So these are some platforms that, as I say, we suggest, and also how they differ from each other.
Just something that, and you'll see there's no TikTok there. TikTok is very good when it comes to showcasing you making. You know, you're a ceramicist, an artist. So that maybe, looking back on it, maybe we could have put that in there. But I didn't want to, and Katie didn't want to make it that TikTok was that important, because actually everyone and their mother is on TikTok, or it's more, I look upon it as quite childlike. You know, even kids are now not using TikTok here in the UK, because it's so passe. It's like, oh, well, that was so last year.
That's for, yes, that's for your parents.
Yeah. So what say is that, you know, Instagram, brilliant for your visuals, but Katie was absolutely right. There has to be a clear differentiation between your personal and your own work. LinkedIn is on a professional level. And when I say professional, you don't have to be a professional today, but you need to think as a professional and how you project yourself, and then your availability, because it actually, LinkedIn is your go-to channel to get work. It's a glorified CV database. That's basic what that comes into. But an art thread, as you probably know, is very much all about emerging. You know, that's what art, and that's why Art Thread was created, because no one on the planet 17 years ago was doing anything for you know, students graduating, emerging creatives. You know, it needed to be solely focused. We are solely focused on emerging and not established artists and designers. So next slide, please.
Next slide, Eleanor. Oh, yeah, so this is concentrating on, don't try to be everywhere. So trying to use every platform. So here are just some examples of the way you might wish to, the order in which you want to use these platforms. So I think, again, I think it's just personal, but again, having so important, as we've been saying, having an Instagram for your own work as well as your personal life. And as we're saying, TikTok, I mean, what's quite interesting is, although on ArtThread we have had an option for people to include their TikTok profiles if they wish, we still don't see a big uptake in that from our art and design students and graduates. I mean, yes, they may use it, but interestingly, you know, it's been slower and less than we had anticipated it being.
It's
Okay,
simply for industry as well.
yeah.
You know, on a professional level, it's more of a marketing tool, and it'll be the marketing department who would be using TikTok. It wouldn't be the creative director, the art director. Very rare. It's very much projecting from a PR marketing perspective, and aimed at the consumer, and leading them to buy product.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where TikTok's come in, but it's a marketing tool, really. That's what it is.
yeah, more for consumers.
Yeah.
So what should you actually post? So there's different types of content. So we've got final work. So this is the lovely finished images, styled images that you've created. Then there's the process. So how you actually got to that point. And then there's also the thinking. So how did you get that point? The sketches, the prototypes, the mood boards. And so, yeah, the strap line here is people don't just buy outcomes, they buy how you think. And that you know, we keep emphasizing this point. Again, this goes back to the bag full of the physical products. It's like your thinking process that is the key point, rather than, oh yeah, that vase, that chair, whatever, is just wonderful. It's the process behind it.
It's the
So cool.
story as well. So something that
Story,
Hilda mentioned
storytelling.
is exactly that. People buy into the story. You know, I bought into I forgot his name now because I don't know him and didn't know about, but the Postman artist. Great story, brilliant story, love it. A postman after 30 years has been doing all this art and suddenly selling his art. That's a lovely story, right? So stories and storytelling is really engaging. Okay, so that, think along those lines. I'm not saying make it up and become like pretend to be a postman, but what I'm saying is that engagement, that reasoning, that leading people to you because of your story, and that people buy into that, you know.
Yeah.
They love that, right? So, you know, that's why we buy, you know. Sometimes it's the story behind it that leads to emotional attachment, but that's really quite important.
Okay. Next slide, Yelena, please. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is really important. Make your work easy to understand. So again, this is going back to empathy, thinking of the person looking at your work and you're not there. So clear titles, short descriptions, what the project is, what it's about, is really important. And also just writing simply. We do see still a lot of people who think they have to write in this design language, and actually people don't really appreciate that. What they want is just very simple description. They don't want, you don't need to feel that you have to write it in a very complicated way. It should just be very simple, or as simple as possible.
And just to add to that, a lot of people don't have the attention span of 30 seconds. You know,
Yeah.
one could say maybe even 8 seconds. In America, they call it the elevator pitch. It's where the elevator goes one floor. You've got to get your point across. And now that's very American, but it's where we are today. You know, it's speed of delivery. You know, and I think this slide nails it really. There's some people put random images up as well, and they think, what the hell? If you can't understand what you're looking at, then you know no one
Switch
will,
up.
right? So it seems obvious, but believe me, we come across it every day. Seriously, we've got so many people uploading. We've got thousands of people upload their work on ArtThread, you know, every year, and I would say 10% minimum are random. And it's like, well, forget it. You know, you'll never get anywhere with random images and too much text. You know, it's not War and Peace, right? People aren't going to read, you know, paragraphs on top of paragraphs, because unless you're orientated towards dissertations, and that's a different kettle of fish from an actual artist or designer. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. I'm conscious of.
Yeah.
Oh, next slide. Oh, yes. So, and there's different types of opportunities, and they all have a different purpose, and they need a different understanding and a different way of approaching. So competitions such as design contests, design awards, open calls such as exhibitions, showcases, and residencies, which is could be working in another country or a different studio. And all of these will need a different approach, maybe a different, as going back to what Nick was saying in the previous presentation, is different opportunities will require you to rewrite what it is about a particular project that you're working on. So you can't just copy and paste, for example, a competition information about a project as to one on residencies, because the residency will be looking at it from a different angle as would the competition. So I think you really have to think about what it is that I think whatever you're doing, you have to really think, okay, this residency, what's it about? What are they looking for? And actually, I think it's still useful just to make lots of notes. Even if you just do it on a piece of paper with a pencil. What is it they're looking for? What are the key criteria? And then see whether you actually fit in. Because the other thing with these competitions, open calls, and residencies is there's nothing worse than wasting your time on something that you're not right for. So make sure that you are. Oh, next slide, Yelena, please. So, okay, yeah, so this is actually following on from what I've just said. So maybe select carefully, focus on relevant opportunities, better images, better explanation, better results. So really sort of focusing your time on what is right and what you're more likely to succeed in and what you'll actually enjoy, rather than thinking, oh, I better apply to all of them. Okay, next slide, please. And presentation matters a lot. So bad photos, actually bad photos is the biggest hurdle often to designers getting picked for residencies or opportunities and trade shows and events. We've done, especially for trade shows where they offer opportunities to upcoming designers, bad photos is usually the reason why somebody doesn't get chosen when they might like their work. I've heard this sentence so many times. We really like this project and we'd really like to have this project, but we really can't have those pictures on our website. So that is really, really crucial, that you make sure you have good photos and messy layouts. So again, if you're uploading something which is a collage of imagery, make sure that it actually is very clear.
Just one thing to add. When creatives are looking at a creative, they've got an eye for detail. So anything, any weakness, it could be the most amazing image, but if it's blurred, as Katie said, in the bin. Awful, but it's true. It's ruthless. The way you project yourself, you've got to think as a professional, because it'll be a professional that's looking at you. So therefore, far better to have 10 outstanding images that you are really proud of than 30 images that are average. So I cannot tell you how crucial that is. There was so many times, I'll give you so many examples of it. There was a lot of amazing creatives that I come across, but it looks like they don't care. When their images are blurred, when they're, there's a slight mistake, there's a spelling mistake, little things are massive to somebody who's got an eye. And if you want to, sell something to somebody or get that break in the industry, you've got to be your own worst critic. You've got to look at it, right? Would I buy that? Would I employ that person? And if you're saying, well, right, it shouldn't even be there. Okay, so you'd be really, really, really ruthless. Yeah.
Yeah, really ruthless, and also get other people to look at it. That's always a good one. Get friends to. Don't ask your mum and dad, because they'll probably say it's fabulous.
Because I love you. Okay, you've got to move on because it's time, love.
Yeah. So okay, short, clear bio. So again, this is as we were talking about focus. So graphic designer focused on branding and typography, rather than just saying, oh, I loved all of art and design. Okay, next slide, please, Yelena. Final thoughts. Okay, so you don't need more platforms, more posts, more noise. What you need is clarity, strategy, and consistency. So be seen by the right people in the right way. Okay, last slide. I think it's okay. Yeah, so that's the final slide.